The concrete floor was cold against my palms as another contraction tore through me. I pressed my face against the basement door, breath fogging the small window at eye level. "Patricia, please," I gasped. "The baby's coming. I need to get to the hospital." Through the frosted glass, I could see my mother-in-law's silhouette on the other side. She didn't move. "You're exactly where you need to be, Sophia," her voice came through, calm and measured. "This is how the Beaumont women do things. My grandmother gave birth in this room. My mother. Me. Now you. This is insane." I pounded on the door. My water had broken 20 minutes ago, pooling on the unfinished floor beneath me. "Marcus. Marcus, help me." "Marcus understands," Patricia said. "This is about bloodline. About tradition. The hospital would interfere with the natural bonding process." I heard footsteps above me. My husband was up there. In our 5 years of marriage, I'd learned Marcus would do anything to avoid confrontation with his mother. But this? This was our child's life. "Marcus!" I screamed. "Call 911. She locked me in. Silence. Then his voice, distant and uncertain. "Mom says it's going to be okay, Soph. Just trust her. She's done this before." Something inside me shattered. Not my body, though that was breaking too with each contraction. It was whatever remained of my belief that my husband would protect me when it mattered most. I slid down the door, my back against the wood, and pulled out my phone. The battery icon showed 8%. My fingers shook as I opened my messages. "Rachel," I texted my best friend. "Patricia locked me in their basement. I'm in labor. She won't let me out. Says it's family tradition. Send help. Zavenymphertic Evergreen Terrace, Seattle." I hit send and immediately started recording audio on my phone. "This is Sophia Chen. It's December 14th, approximately 3:47 p.m. My mother-in-law Patricia Beaumont has locked me in her basement. I'm 39 weeks pregnant and in active labor. She's refusing to let me go to the hospital." My voice cracked. "Marcus, if you're listening to this later, and something happens to me or our baby, know that I begged you for help, and you did nothing. Let me tell you how I ended up locked in my mother-in-law's basement, giving birth on a concrete floor while she called it tradition. It started 6 months earlier. At the gender reveal party, Patricia insisted on hosting. Marcus and I had wanted something small, just us and a few friends. But Patricia had other ideas, and Marcus never said no to his mother. "A Beaumont heir," Patricia announced when the blue confetti fell, pulling Marcus into a tight embrace while I stood awkwardly to the side, still holding the confetti cannon. "The first grandson. This is so important for our family legacy." I tried to laugh it off. "It's just a baby, Patricia. Not the heir to a throne." Her smile had frozen. "In this family, children are everything. And raising them correctly is paramount." She turned to Marcus. "Your father would be so proud." Marcus's father had died when he was 12. In the years since, Patricia had built him into something close to a saint in Marcus's memory. Every decision, every family rule, was justified with "your father would have wanted" or "your father believed." Over the next few months, Patricia's involvement in the pregnancy intensified. She'd show up at our apartment unannounced with bags of organic groceries I hadn't asked for. She'd insist on accompanying me to doctor's appointments, then argue with my OB about everything from my weight gain to my birth plan. "Natural birth is best," she'd said firmly during my 30-week appointment. "No drugs. The baby needs to experience the natural process." "That's not really your decision," Dr. Martinez had replied diplomatically. Patricia had smiled thinly. "Of course. I'm just sharing family wisdom." Marcus sat silently beside me, scrolling through his phone. The real turning point came at 36 weeks, during Sunday dinner at Patricia's house, the restored Victorian estate where Marcus had grown up. The house sat on 2 acres of land, isolated from neighbors by dense evergreen trees. Very private. Very quiet. "I've been thinking," Patricia announced as she served dessert. "You should give birth here." I nearly choked on my water. "What? Here? At the house?" She sat down, folding her hands. It's a family tradition. All Beaumont women give birth at home. Marcus was born right upstairs. His father delivered him. Mom, that's... Marcus started, but his voice trailed off when Patricia looked at him. Your father was incredibly proud of that moment, she said softly. He always said there was nothing more sacred than welcoming a child into the family home. Into the family legacy. I set down my fork carefully. Patricia, I appreciate the sentiment, but I'm giving birth at Swedish Medical Center. My doctor is there. The NICU is there if something goes wrong. This isn't negotiable. Hospitals are so clinical, Patricia continued as if I hadn't spoken. So many interventions. They push unnecessary procedures. Here, it would be natural. Pure. The way it's meant to be. The way it's meant to be is with medical professionals present, I said firmly. Marcus, back me up here. My husband looked between his mother and me, his face pale. I mean, Mom has a point about hospitals being pushy sometimes. Are you serious right now? Let's just think about it, he said weakly. Hear her out. I stood up, my chair scraping against the hardwood. There's nothing to think about. I'm having this baby at a hospital. End of discussion. I'd thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. Over the next 2 weeks, Patricia's campaign intensified. She'd send Marcus articles about home births, about medical kidnapping, about women's rights to choose their birth experience. She'd call him at work, text him constantly. And slowly, I watched my husband bend. Maybe we should consider it, he said one night as we got ready for bed. Consider what? Having the baby at Mom's house. Just as a backup plan. You know, if the weather's bad or something. I stared at him in the bathroom mirror. Marcus, no. Absolutely not. She really wants this, Soph. It's important to her. And what about what's important to me? What's safe for our baby? She's not suggesting anything unsafe. She's actually been researching certified nurse midwives. She found one who could be there. She found one? Marcus. Do you hear yourself? Your mother is planning my birth without my consent. He'd gotten defensive then, the way he always did when I criticized Patricia. She's just trying to help. She's excited about being a grandmother. Why do you always have to make her the villain? That's when I'd started to understand. In Marcus's mind, any resistance to his mother's wishes was me being difficult. Her needs would always outweigh mine because, in his world, Patricia's feelings were facts and mine were just opinions. The situation reached its breaking point 3 days before my due date. Seattle was under a severe winter storm warning. Snow had been falling since morning, already accumulating 6 inches with more predicted. The roads were treacherous. You should come stay at Mom's house, Marcus said, watching the news. Just until the storm passes. We're too far from the hospital here. Marcus, I'm not going into labor just because there's snow. But what if you do? The drive is 30 minutes in good weather. In this? He gestured at the window. We might not make it. Then we'll call an ambulance. Soph, please. Just for a few days. Mom's house is closer to Swedish if we need to go, and at least we'd have shelter and heat if we get snowed in here. Looking back, I can see the manipulation so clearly. But in that moment, exhausted and uncomfortable and worried about the storm myself, it almost made sense. Fine, I'd agreed. But we're going to the hospital when labor starts. Non-negotiable. Of course, Marcus had said, relief flooding his face. Of course. We'd driven to Patricia's house that afternoon, sliding on icy roads, arriving just before the snow got worse. Patricia had hugged Marcus tightly, then turned to me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Welcome, she'd said. I've prepared everything. She led us upstairs to what had been Marcus's childhood room, now converted into a guest space. Make yourselves comfortable. Dinner is at 6. That night, as the storm howled outside, Patricia had made her move. I want to show you something, she'd said after dinner, leading me toward the basement door. The birthing room. The what? Where the family welcomes new babies. I've prepared it specially. She'd opened the door, flipping on the light to reveal stairs descending into darkness. Every instinct screamed at me not to go down there. But Marcus was right behind me, encouraging. Come on, Soph. Just look. Mom worked really hard on this. I descended slowly, one hand on the railing, one on my belly. The basement was partially finished, divided into rooms. Patricia led me to one at the far end. When she opened the door, I'd frozen. The room had been transformed into something from another era. An antique metal bed frame with white linens. Old medical instruments displayed on the walls like art. Dozens of candles waiting to be lit. And photographs, everywhere, of women in various stages of labor, all in this same room. Black and white photos dating back decades. 4 generations of Beaumont women, Patricia said proudly. My grandmother Evelyn, here in 1924, my mother Catherine in 1952, me in 1969 with Marcus. And soon, you. Patricia, this is. I'd struggled for words. This is a lot. It's sacred, she'd corrected. This room has welcomed 12 Beaumont babies. Each one healthy. Each one strong. No hospitals, no interventions. Just family and faith. I'd backed toward the door. I appreciate the history, but like I said, I'm giving birth at the hospital. We'll see, Patricia had said softly. Nature has a way of deciding these things for us. That was last night. This morning, I'd woken up to contractions. Mild at first, irregular. Nothing to worry about. But by noon, they were 5 minutes apart. I'd found Marcus in the living room, staring out at the continuing snowfall. We need to go, I'd said. Labor's starting. Call Dr. Martinez and tell her we're coming. Soph, look at the roads. He'd pointed to the window. The street was completely obscured by snow. The news says nothing's moving out there. Even emergency vehicles are delayed. Then we call 911. They'll send an ambulance. And risk them getting stuck. Or crashing. Marcus had taken my hands. Mom says we can handle this here. She's already called a midwife. What midwife? When did she do that? This morning. She had a feeling you'd go into labor today. The realization had hit me like ice water. She planned this. The storm, the isolation, getting us here. She planned all of it. Don't be paranoid. She's just prepared, that's all. Patricia had appeared in the doorway then, serene and composed. How far apart are the contractions? We're leaving, I'd said. Call 911, Marcus. Now. Sophia, be reasonable, Patricia said. The roads are impassable. You're putting yourself and my grandson at risk by insisting on unnecessary travel. Unnecessary? It's a hospital. Women have been giving birth without hospitals for thousands of years. You have everything you need right here. Safety. Family. Tradition. I turned to Marcus, desperate. Please. This is wrong. You know this is wrong. He'd looked at his mother, then at me, then at his feet. Maybe we should just see how it goes. If things get serious, we'll call for help. Things are already serious. I'm in labor. The midwife will be here within the hour, Patricia said. Let's get you downstairs and settled. Marcus, help her. I'm not going down there. Patricia's expression had hardened. This is for your own good, Sophia. And for my grandsons. You're not thinking clearly. Hormones, stress. Let me take care of this. That's when I'd tried to leave. I'd grabbed my phone and headed for the front door, only to find it locked. The deadbolt requiring a key. A key, Patricia held. Let me out, I demanded. Not until you're calm. Not until you stop being hysterical. I'm not hysterical, I'm in labor and trapped. Marcus, get the key. But Marcus had just stood there, paralyzed by 38 years of conditioning to never contradict his mother. Patricia had smiled. Come downstairs, Sophia. Everything is prepared. This is happening whether you accept it or not. I'd run through the house, looking for another exit, but the back doors were locked too. Patricia followed calmly, like she had all the time in the world. You're making this harder than it needs to be. The birthing room is comfortable. You'll see. When another contraction hit, dropping me to my knees in the hallway, Patricia had seized her opportunity. With Marcus's help, they'd guided me toward the basement stairs. Just cooperate, Marcus kept saying. Please, Soph. For the baby. I'd fought every step. But another contraction, stronger this time, had stolen my strength. Before I knew it, I was in that room. That awful room with its antique bed and its gallery of suffering women. Lie down, Patricia instructed. I'll check your progress. Don't touch me. I've delivered babies before. I know what I'm doing. You're not a medical professional. You're a retired teacher. Patricia's face had gone cold. I'm a Beaumont mother. That's all the qualification needed in this house. Now lie down or I'll have Marcus hold you down. I'd looked at my husband. Marcus, please. Don't let her do this. He'd looked away. Mom knows what she's doing, Soph. Just try to relax. When I'd lunged for the door, Patricia had been faster. She'd pushed me back, stepped outside, and slammed the door shut. I'd heard the lock click from the outside. Let me out. You can't do this. You'll thank me later. Patricia had called through the door. When you're holding your healthy baby boy. Born the right way. The Beaumont way. That was 40 minutes ago. Now, I sat on the cold floor, phone clutched in my hand, feeling the battery drain as I kept the audio recording running. Each contraction was getting stronger, closer together. I was fully in labor now, and I was locked in a basement with no medical help. I heard a door open upstairs. Voices. Rachel? I screamed. Rachel. I'm down here. In the basement. Heavy footsteps on the stairs. The lock turned. But it wasn't Rachel. Patricia entered, carrying towels and a basin. Behind her, Marcus hovered uncertainly. The midwife is stuck in traffic, Patricia announced. So it's just us. Family. The way it should be. You need to let me out. This is illegal. It's kidnapping. Don't be dramatic. I'm helping you give birth safely in dangerous weather conditions. Any court would see that. Another contraction hit, and I screamed through it, both from pain and rage. Patricia approached with the basin. Let me check how dilated you are. Get away from me. I scrambled backward. Marcus, if you love me at all, call 911 right now. He pulled out his phone, and for a moment I thought I'd reached him. But Patricia's hand shot out, plucking it from his grasp. No hospitals, she said firmly. This is a family matter. That's when I knew. I was completely alone. Patricia wasn't going to let me go, and Marcus wasn't going to save me. I had to save myself. I pulled my own phone back out. Battery, 5%. I opened the camera and hit record, pointing it at Patricia. You're recording? She lunged for the phone, but I rolled away, gasping through another contraction. I'm documenting everything, I managed. Every single thing. You locked me in here. You're preventing me from getting medical care. This is evidence. Patricia's face transformed. The gentle grandmother mask fell away, revealing something cold and calculating underneath. Give me that phone. No. Marcus, get her phone. But I'd already sent the video to Rachel, to the cloud, to everywhere I could think of, with shaking fingers and the last 2% of my battery. Too late, I gasped as my screen went black. It's already out there. Patricia stared at me. Then slowly, she smiled. Who's going to believe you? A woman in labor, hysterical, making accusations against the grandmother trying to help her? My family has lived in Seattle for 4 generations. I have friends in every social circle in this city. Who do you think they'll believe? She was right. In that moment, with my phone dead and Marcus standing uselessly in the doorway, I realized how trapped I really was. Not just in this room, but in this family. In this marriage. In this entire situation that had been building since the day I'd met Marcus. Another contraction seized me, harder than before. I felt something shift inside me. The baby was coming, whether I was ready or not. I need to push, I gasped. Patricia's expression shifted to something almost hungry. Good. Let's bring this baby into the world. The Beaumont way. What happened next, I can barely stand to remember. The pain, yes, but worse was the violation. Patricia's hands on me, barking orders, treating my body like it belonged to her family legacy instead of to me. Marcus watching, pale and useless, occasionally murmuring it's going to be okay like a broken record. I begged. I pleaded. I screamed. And through it all, Patricia remained calm, talking about tradition and bloodline and the importance of doing things correctly. At some point, I stopped fighting. Not because I accepted it, but because I needed every ounce of strength for my baby. Let Patricia think she'd won. Let Marcus believe his mother was a hero. I'd remember. And I'd make sure everyone else remembered too. My son was born at 6:47 p.m. on a concrete basement floor, with only my captor and my coward husband present. Patricia cut the cord with scissors I'd never seen properly sterilized. She wrapped him in one of those antique linens and held him up like a trophy. A perfect Beaumont boy, she announced. I reached for him, but she pulled back. Let me clean him first. Give me my baby. In a moment. There's a process. Give me my son now. Something in my voice must have penetrated even Marcus's fog. Mom, let her hold him. Reluctantly, Patricia placed my baby on my chest. He was crying, and alive, and perfect. I wrapped my arms around him and sobbed into his tiny body. I'm sorry, I whispered. I'm so sorry. But even as I held him, I was planning. Patricia had won this battle, but the war was just beginning. She'd locked me in a basement. She'd prevented me from accessing medical care. She'd essentially imprisoned a woman in active labor. And I had evidence. Somewhere out there in the cloud. Waiting to be retrieved. I just needed to survive long enough to use it. An hour later, Patricia finally unlocked the door. The midwife had arrived, a woman named Carol who looked at the scene with undisguised horror. You already delivered? Carol's eyes darted between the basement room and Patricia. Patricia, you said you were just preparing, that labor hadn't started yet. Plans changed, Patricia said smoothly. Everything went perfectly. Mother and baby are healthy. Carol examined me quickly, professionally. When she pressed on my abdomen to check for hemorrhaging, she leaned close and whispered. Were you locked in here? I nodded, eyes darting to Patricia who was busy showing Marcus how to hold the baby. I'm calling this in, Carol whispered. This isn't right. She'll stop you. Please. Just help me get to a hospital. Make up an excuse, anything. Carol nodded and stood up. Patricia, there's some retained placenta. She needs to be transported to the ER for a D&C. Can't you handle it here? Not with the equipment I have. This is a hospital procedure. Carol's voice was firm. Call 911, or I will. For the first time, I saw uncertainty cross Patricia's face. She'd planned for resistance from me, but not from her hired midwife. Fine, she said tightly. Marcus, call an ambulance. The ambulance ride was a blur. Carol rode with me, and the EMTs, bless them, kept asking questions. How long was I in labor? Where did I give birth? Was I alone? Tell them, Carol urged softly. Tell them everything. So I did. Haltingly at first, then in a flood. How Patricia had trapped me. How she'd locked the door. How Marcus had stood by and let it happen. How I'd begged for help and been denied. The EMT who wasn't driving, a woman named Sarah, took notes on everything. We're documenting all of this, she said quietly. And we're mandatory reporters. We have to report suspected abuse. At the hospital, everything moved fast. I was examined, treated, and my baby was checked thoroughly. Dr. Martinez arrived, her face a thundercloud when she heard what had happened. Sophia, this is assault, she said bluntly. What Patricia did is illegal on multiple levels. You need to file a police report. Marcus is an adult who made his choices. You need to think about yourself and your son now. That's when Rachel finally arrived, bursting into my room like an avenging angel. She'd been trying to get to me for hours, stuck in storm traffic, calling 911, calling everyone she could think of. I got your text, she said, hugging me carefully around the IV lines. I called the police. I sent them to that house. They were there when the ambulance picked you up. Did they arrest Patricia? I don't know. But I saved all the videos you sent me. The audio recording. Everything. She squeezed my hand. You documented it all, Soph. You were so smart. I hadn't felt smart. I'd felt trapped and powerless and betrayed. But maybe that was enough. Maybe survival itself was victory. Marcus showed up at the hospital 2 hours later. He tried to come into my room, but Rachel blocked him. She doesn't want to see you. That's my wife. My son. That's the woman you let your mother imprison. The baby you let be born on a concrete floor. You don't get to play husband and father now. Rach, it's okay, I called out. Let him in. Marcus entered slowly, looking haggard. Soph, I'm sorry. I didn't realize. You didn't realize your mother locked me in a basement? Or you didn't realize that was wrong? She said it was for the best. She said the roads were too dangerous, that this was the safest option. And when I was screaming for help? Was that safe? He had no answer. Get out, I said quietly. Go back to your mother. That's what you're good at. Sophia, please. We can fix this. You held me down, Marcus. Your mother imprisoned me, and you helped. There's no fixing that. After he left, I held my baby and cried. Not just for what had happened, but for what I'd lost. My marriage, yes. But more than that, my illusion that Marcus would ever choose me over Patricia. That love would be enough to break through decades of manipulation and control. Dr. Martinez came back later with a social worker and a police officer. They took my statement. They had Carol's report. They had the videos and audio I'd recorded. They had the EMT's observations of the locked basement room, the unsanitary conditions, the evidence of unlawful imprisonment. This is enough to press charges, the officer said. Multiple charges. Unlawful imprisonment, reckless endangerment, practicing medicine without a license. Will she go to jail? That depends on the prosecutor and the court. But yes. That's a possibility. I thought about Patricia, about her perfect house and her family legacy, and her absolute certainty that she was right. About how she'd looked at me like I was nothing more than a vessel for her grandson. Press charges, I said. All of them. Over the next few days, while I recovered in the hospital, the full story emerged. Rachel had called the police while I was still locked in that basement. They'd arrived shortly after the ambulance, and they'd searched the house. What they found changed everything. Patricia hadn't just done this to me. In the locked basement office, police found journals dating back decades. Detailed records of 12 births in that room. Not all of them had gone well. One woman in 1987 had hemorrhaged badly. Patricia's notes described how she'd managed the situation without hospital intervention, but the timeline suggested the woman had nearly died. Another in 2003 had an infection afterward. Patricia had treated it with herbs and prayer instead of antibiotics. But the real revelation came from Marcus's own birth. Patricia's journal entry was triumphant. Delivered Marcus myself when Robert refused to help. He wanted hospital, but I knew better. Baby arrived perfect. Proved a mother's instinct is stronger than medical training. Marcus's father hadn't been part of some sacred tradition. He'd been overruled, just like I'd been. Just like every woman who'd been unlucky enough to marry into this family. The prosecutor assigned to the case, a woman named Sophia Chen, no relation, came to interview me personally. Mrs. Beaumont, she started, but I cut her off. It's Sophia Chen now. I'm using my maiden name. She nodded approvingly. Sophia. I want you to understand what we're dealing with. Your mother-in-law has done this repeatedly, creating dangerous situations for multiple women over decades. But you're the first with documentation. The first who reported it while it was happening. You might be the key to finally stopping her. What are you charging her with? Unlawful imprisonment, reckless endangerment, practicing medicine without a license, and we're considering felony assault. That last one is tricky, but the physical restraint during labor might qualify. We're building the strongest case we can. And Marcus? Lisa's expression hardened. He was present during a crime and did nothing. That's legally complicated. But in terms of your family court case, and I assume you'll be filing for divorce? I nodded. His complicity in endangering you and his child will absolutely factor into custody determinations. I hired the best divorce lawyer Rachel could find, a woman named Jennifer Morrison, who took one look at my case and said, "We're going for full custody and a restraining order against both of them." Both? Your soon-to-be ex-husband enabled his mother to commit a serious crime against you. He stood by while you were imprisoned and forced to give birth in unsafe conditions. No judge is going to grant him unsupervised access to that baby. She was right. 2 weeks later, I walked into court with a binder full of evidence. The videos. The audio. The EMT reports. Carol the midwife's detailed statement about what she'd found. Dr. Martinez's medical records showing the risk I'd been placed in. Marcus's lawyer tried to paint it as a misunderstanding. A difficult situation during a storm where everyone did their best. Jennifer stood up and played the audio. My voice, begging to be let out. Patricia's calm insistence that this was tradition. Marcus's weak pleas for me to cooperate. The judge's expression turned to stone. "Mr. Beaumont," she said when it finished. "You stood by and allowed your wife to be imprisoned while she was in active labor?" "My mother," she said. "I don't care what your mother said. You're a grown man. You had a phone. You had the ability to call 911. You chose not to." She turned to me. "Miss Chen, I'm granting you full legal and physical custody. Mr. Beaumont will have supervised visitation only, and only if he completes a court-mandated course on recognizing and resisting parental manipulation." "Your Honor," Marcus's lawyer tried, but the judge held up her hand. "I'm also issuing a restraining order against Patricia Beaumont. She is not to come within 500 feet of Miss Chen or the child." Marcus looked like he'd been slapped. "My mom can't see her own grandson?" "Your mother imprisoned his mother," the judge said coldly. "She's lucky she's not in jail yet." But Patricia was heading to jail. The criminal trial moved faster than anyone expected. The prosecution had an airtight case, and Patricia's lawyer couldn't overcome the sheer weight of evidence. The videos I'd taken, the journals they'd found, testimony from Carol and Dr. Martinez and the EMTs. Patricia's only defense was that she'd been acting in my best interest. That hospitals are dangerous. That she was preserving important traditions. The jury didn't buy it. They convicted her on all counts. At sentencing, the judge didn't hold back. "Mrs. Beaumont, you committed serious crimes under the guise of family tradition. You imprisoned a woman in labor, denied her medical care, and placed both her and her child in danger. Your journal entries show this wasn't an isolated incident but a pattern of behavior spanning decades. I'm sentencing you to 6 years in prison." 6 years. Patricia, who'd been so certain of her righteousness, who'd believed her family name and her years of respectability would shield her, was going to prison. Marcus didn't come to the sentencing. Rachel told me later he'd moved back into his mother's house, that he was telling anyone who'd listened that I'd overreacted, that I'd destroyed his family. "Let him believe that," Jennifer advised. "It only helps our case." The divorce was finalized 3 months later. I got the house Marcus and I had shared, full custody, child support, and half of everything we'd accumulated. Jennifer made sure Marcus understood that any attempt to violate the custody arrangement would result in immediate loss of even supervised visitation. But the real victory came from an unexpected source. One day, about 4 months after everything happened, I got a call from a woman named Sarah Beaumont Larson. "I was married to Marcus's cousin," she explained. "I gave birth in that basement room too. 2003. I got an infection afterward, and Patricia told me it was normal, that antibiotics would interfere with bonding. I ended up septic. Nearly died. I'm so sorry. Don't be." I got out, eventually. Divorced the family. But I never pressed charges because I didn't think anyone would believe me. Then I saw your story on the news. Her voice strengthened. "I want to testify. I want to help make sure Patricia stays in prison." She wasn't the only one. Over the next few weeks, 3 more women came forward. All former Beaumont wives or daughters-in-law. All with stories of Patricia's control, manipulation, and dangerous obsession with family tradition. Not all had been forced to give birth in the basement, but all had been subjected to some form of Patricia's particular brand of abuse. Sophia Chen, the prosecutor, was thrilled. This changes the case entirely. This isn't one incident, it's a pattern of abuse spanning 30 years. We're going to push for additional charges. The additional charges stuck. Patricia's sentence was extended to 10 years. She'd be 70 when she got out. If she got out. At her age, a 10-year sentence was essentially life. Marcus sent me one letter after the additional sentencing. No return address, no signature. Just 3 sentences. You destroyed my family. My mother was trying to help you. I hope you're satisfied. I burned it. Because here's what Marcus never understood. Patricia didn't destroy the family. She was the rot at its center, the infection that had been growing for generations. I didn't destroy anything. I just finally called attention to what had been happening all along. 6 months after that night in the basement, I was thriving. Not just surviving, thriving. I'd moved into a new apartment, gotten a promotion at work, and started a support group for women escaping abusive in-law relationships. Turns out, there are a lot of us. Women who married mama's boys, who tried to set boundaries, who were gaslit into thinking they were the problem. The support group met every Thursday evening, and within 3 months, we had 20 regular members. One of them asked me once how I found the strength to fight back. I didn't feel strong, I admitted. I felt terrified. But I realized something while I was locked in that basement. Patricia had taken everything else from me. My sense of safety, my marriage, my birth experience. But she couldn't take my voice unless I let her. So I documented everything. I recorded. I sent evidence. I made noise, even when I was told to be quiet. That's not strength. That's just survival. It's strength, another woman, Lisa, said firmly. She'd been married to a different kind of mama's boy, one whose mother showed up at their house daily and rearranged Lisa's furniture to be more welcoming. You showed us that we don't have to accept it. That keeping the peace isn't worth losing ourselves. That became our group motto. Silence isn't peace. My son is 2 years old now. His name is River, after the change and flow and constant motion of water. I chose it specifically because it's nothing like the Beaumont family names Patricia had already picked out. Marcus has supervised visitation twice a month. Sometimes he shows up. Often he doesn't. When he does come, he spends most of the visit on his phone, and River barely knows him. I used to feel sad about that. Now I just feel relieved. River will grow up knowing his mother fought for him. He'll grow up in a home where boundaries are respected, where family tradition doesn't override safety or consent. Where love isn't conditional on obedience. Patricia sends letters from prison. I don't read them. They go directly into a folder Jennifer keeps, in case they're ever needed for future legal proceedings. Marcus occasionally texts asking for another chance to be a real father, but his idea of being a real father involves me allowing unsupervised visits and letting Patricia have a relationship with River once she's released. The answer is no. Will always be no. Last month, a reporter from a local news station contacted me. They were doing a story on coercive control in family systems, and they'd heard about my case. Would you be willing to share your story? She asked. Not for sensationalism, but to help other women recognize the signs. I thought about it for a long time. Thought about Patricia, locked away in prison still believing she'd done nothing wrong. Thought about Marcus, living in his mother's house, trapped in her orbit even now. Thought about all the women who'd come before me, who'd suffered in that basement and never told anyone. Yes, I said. I'll tell my story. The interview aired last week. I talked about the warning signs I'd missed. The way Patricia slowly escalated her control. How Marcus always chose his mother over me. The moment I realized I was in real danger. How I'd fought back not with violence, but with documentation. The response was overwhelming. My inbox flooded with messages from women sharing their own stories. Support group membership doubled. And 3 more women came forward with reports about Patricia's crimes, incidents from years ago they'd been too afraid to report at the time. Lisa called me after the show aired. You're amazing, you know that. What you're doing, helping all these women. That's legacy. Real legacy. Not Patricia's twisted version. Real legacy. I like that. River won't grow up knowing the Beaumont family traditions. He won't hear stories about great-grandmother Evelyn or the sacred birthing room. He'll never be told that blood is thicker than water or that family always comes first no matter what. Instead, he'll learn that safety matters. That consent matters. That sometimes the family you choose is stronger than the family you're born into. That speaking up, even when your voice shakes, is always the right choice. And if he ever asks about his grandmother, about why he doesn't know her, I'll tell him the truth. Not a child's version. Not a simplified story. The truth. I'll tell him about the night he was born. About how his grandmother chose tradition over safety. About how his father chose his mother over us. About how his mom chose survival and fought back. I'll tell him that some people hide cruelty behind words like tradition and family and love. That the most dangerous people are often the ones who believe they're doing the right thing. And I'll tell him that he came into this world surrounded by people who were supposed to protect him and his mother, but that his mom protected them both instead. Because that's the truth. The hard, painful, complicated truth. I survived that night in the basement. More than survived, I escaped. Not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. I escaped the trap of believing that keeping a toxic family together was more important than my own safety and dignity. Patricia took a lot from me. The birth experience I'd planned. The marriage I'd hoped to save. My sense of security in my own home. But here's what she couldn't take. My voice. My determination. My ability to stand up and say, no. This ends here. With me. Today. That's what I want other women to know. The ones living with controlling in-laws and spineless spouses. The ones being told they're too sensitive, too demanding, too unwilling to compromise. The ones who are slowly losing themselves trying to keep peace in a house that was never peaceful to begin with. You are not the problem. You are not overreacting. You are not crazy. And you have more power than you think. Document everything. Tell people. Make noise. Fight back. Choose yourself. Choose your children. Choose safety over tradition. Dignity over peacekeeping. Freedom over family approval. It won't be easy. I won't lie and say it is. There will be hard days. Days when you doubt yourself. Days when the guilt threatens to overwhelm you. Days when you wonder if you're doing the right thing. But then you'll look at your child, safe and free from that cycle of control. You'll breathe in your own home without wondering when the next criticism will come. You'll make a decision without seeking anyone's permission. You'll exist without constantly monitoring your behavior to avoid setting someone off. And you'll know it was worth it. Every difficult conversation. Every legal battle. Every moment of standing firm when everyone else told you to bend. It was all worth it. My name is Sophia Chen. 2 years ago, my mother-in-law locked me in her basement while I was in labor, and my husband let her do it. But I'm not a victim. I'm a survivor. A fighter. A mother protecting her child. A woman who refused to be silenced. And I'm free. That's my story. That's my truth. That's my legacy. Not a basement birthing room. Not a family tradition built on control and coercion. Just freedom. Hard-won, fiercely protected, absolutely priceless freedom. And I'm never giving it up again.